Hello, wrestling fans, and welcome back to another edition of Wrestling Disasters. I am Steve Fall with my co-host, Ms. Chrissy Love. How you doing today?
I'm okay. How are you?
Oh, I have my barf bag.
Yeah.
right over here. I got it prepared because today we're talking about Undertaker versus Undertaker. Yes, that's right, folks. The fake Taker versus the real Taker on Wrestling Disasters. It took place from SummerSlam 1994. And how does this show work? Well, we take today's topic, we dissect it a little bit. At the end of the show, we hand out the prestigious Disaster Award. What's that, you're asking? Well, we give this topic maybe, say, 5 disasters, which is the worst possible thing you've ever seen with your eyes, or maybe even a half a disaster when you say, meh, it really wasn't that bad. But this one might reach 5. This one might reach 5. So let's talk about it. How did we get to, well, actually, first off, how did you like Undertaker versus Undertaker? Did you watch this live when you were younger?
No, I did not.
Okay.
I don't remember watching this was Survivor. No,
SummerSlam.
What was SummerSlam? Yes. I don't remember the SummerSlam at all.
And it's bizarre because if you go back in wrestling history, the championship matches, usually the world title, usually main events. Whoever is the world champion usually main events the pay-per-view. Now, in a random circumstance, SummerSlam 92, the Intercontinental title was the main event because they were in London, England. The British Bulldog was in there. Obviously, that's a good choice for them. This is the first time, if I can remember, that a one-on-one match without a championship, without the champions involved, is a main event of a pay-per-view. To me, that's pretty historic already, right? Like, that's just bizarre.
Because they've never done it before. So this time, I guess they felt like he was that guy that can do it.
And maybe that's why Bret Hart is always so angry about life in general. I love Bret Hart to pieces. But at the same time, he was the WWF World Champion. He was fighting Owen Hart on the undercard in a steel cage match, but yet you are trumped by the fake Undertaker versus the real Undertaker.
Right.
I can see why Bret's a little angry, right?
He's been angry. But,
He's been angry for a lot of things, but this is definitely one of them. But how did we get to a fake Taker versus a real Taker?
Right. Yeah.
This is where it gets crazy because you got to go back to a Royal Rumble 1994. Taker was getting a world championship match against Yokozuna, and it was a casket match. So, of course, everyone's afraid of caskets. Nobody wants to be put inside one in general. Like, can you imagine where, like, Vince is like, I got a great idea for you, Yoko. We're going to shove you in a casket. Like, how could, and then listen, imagine being locked in a casket and you get wheeled to the back.
Right, you got to sit there.
You know people are going to screw with you. Imagine, like, all right, guys, can you let me out, please?
Let me
out.
Yes.
You're like, why don't we draw buckets of piss in there? That'll teach him a lesson.
And remember, Undertaker would walk even, I think he walks slow now, but I think he was walking even slower back then.
He was.
Like, it took him at least, like, how many minutes to get to the ring? And don't let it be a long ramp. Oh,
yeah. And I think, honestly, he probably took longer to get to the ring than the match length.
Yeah.
But yes, in 94, the Rumble, a bunch of heels, bad people like Crush and Jeff Jarrett and the Head Shrinkers came down, and they beat up Taker, and they beat up Paul Bear. And that was the day we found out what's inside the urn. Because before that, we were told it's like maybe the parents' ashes of the Undertaker. Like, we saw Hogan take out the ashes once and throw them in Taker's face. But here we are, in this green mystical smoke is pouring out of the urn, and we're like, what the hell? What in the world is this? And we're being told on commentary that's the power of the Undertaker.
That gave him the power to get up and everything. So that's why Paul Bearer would always hold it. Yep.
Every time he held it up, oh yeah. Suddenly Taker sits up. He's like, oh, what?
Right. Yes. Yeah.
In reality, Taker was hurt. He needed to go rest. So they had him lose the casket match. But while he's in the casket, he's getting wheeled into the back. Suddenly on the Titantron, there's a picture of Undertaker inside the casket. I had nightmares about this. Full on nightmares as a child, like freaking out.
Oh, this one he like rose up and came up out of. Yes, I remember that. Okay, now that I do remember. Okay, go ahead.
He
I remember that
rises
yeah.
from the casket into
Like a
the
hologram.
sky.
Yeah.
He's like, the Undertaker will never rest in peace.
Yeah. Yep.
And then he goes into the heavens. Yet, to me, if he's like the devil, he's like the devil worshiper, and he's the prince of darkness. Wouldn't he go down, not up?
Right.
He'd go to hell.
That's true.
Not heaven.
I guess this is how he became a face, because remember, he was always a heel.
He was like a scary bad guy for like a long ass time. Not until like 92 did he suddenly start getting face reactions and people would stop pissing their pants when he came down to the ring.
Right.
They're like, oh, this guy is scary and I like him. Oh,
right.
Cool. So as 1994 starts rolling around, Undertaker misses WrestleMania. That's crazy to me. WrestleMania 10 does not have Undertaker on the card. It's just nuts. But as summer rolled in, suddenly the $1 Million Man came out and he was like, I have the power of the Undertaker. I know where he is. And Paul Bear's like, no, you don't. And then Man's like, no, yes, I do. And he's like, no, you don't. So all summer, it's so funny to think about this. All summer long on Superstars and wrestling challenges, that was what their shows were at the time.
That's what their show. Yes, it was on Saturdays.
Saturday mornings.
And main event on the evenings.
Yeah.
Yes.
Of course, good times, good memories. Raw existed, but it was not the show it has become, obviously.
No, right. When did Raw start? Like, was it
93?
90, right, yeah.
January. So it's been going about for a year now. Year and a half, but yet Wrestling Challenge Superstars was the big place. And every time we had those episodes, we were on a search for the Undertaker. Where is he? And then when they interview people like, sir, is it true you saw the Undertaker at the jewelry store? He's like, I did see the Undertaker at the jewelry store. He's at the beach. And he's in his full gear, by the way.
Right. Not even like he's like, in some shorts and sunglasses. No, he's in his regular long coat and hat.
Hat on.
Yeah.
It's gloves. I'm gonna make some sand castles.
Now, was his outfit always it was gray?
Always gray. It was always gray.
Okay.
Yeah, he was always had the gray gloves, the gray tie, the gray straps around his boots. But yet, it's a very serious angle. You think like a man who worships like the devil, and he's very powerful, and we're looking for him. We don't know where he is. Paul Bear says he knows where he is. Mandela Man says he knows where he is. But suddenly they get Leslie Nielsen, who is an actor in movies like Police Squad and the Naked Gun films, and he's a bumbling fool in these movies. So they hire this terrible cop to go on the search for Undertaker, which is SummerSlam's also sponsored by Domino's that year. So the whole entire time we're looking for Undertaker, it's like, well, I'm hungry, I must get Domino's while I look for the Undertaker for SummerSlam. Like, how about
eat this pizza?
Talk about cross promotion, right? It's just insane.
As you talk, it gets worse and worse now.
It's just so funny to think that you're going to put two Undertakers against each other, but you're also going to somehow tie in Domino's and tie in Leslie Nielsen, a bumbling fool, to go look for Taker.
Right.
And again, they're filming these like film noir scenes where he's in an office. He's like, I don't know who this Taker is.
Yeah.
I don't know who this Taker is, kid. It was weird, very bizarre. But we finally get to SummerSlam, and Paul Bear is going to have an Undertaker, and DiBiase will have a Taker. Well, DiBiase comes down with his Taker. He's in gray. Well, when Paul Bear shows up, so this was like the size of the urn when he first had it. He was like, oh,
yes.
And then when he brings out like, I don't have anything to even represent how big it is.
You know, like, when you buy the big detergents to do your laundry.
Yes.
It's big like that.
Yes.
Or the big jugs of water that the Poland Spring cans when you at your workplace and have the big cups. It's as big as that. Yes, there you go. Yes.
So suddenly Paul Bear's coming down with this gigantic urn, and he's like, and he takes off the cover, and there's a flashlight inside it.
Flashlight, and that was oh my god.
A giant flashlight, and he's waving around.
And the lights are like flickering in the stadium. Is like, what are they doing?
There's thunder and lightning for the first time ever. We never had thunder and lightning for Taker ever until tonight. Well, he shows up, and the Taker that we love and adored, he has purple gloves now. He's got a purple tie now. He's got purple leggings on, purple hat around his ribbing around his hat.
Yep.
So I think the reason behind this obviously is, let's make the Undertaker a little different with purple, but how can you tell the difference?
Likable, yeah.
How can you tell the difference between gray Undertaker and purple Undertaker?
Purple
If it was two gray ones, you'd be like, oh, I'm seeing double.
Who's who? Right.
But
which they should have done, but whatever.
Yeah, and the fake Undertaker is actually Brian Lee. He later on will be known as Chains in the DOA, Disciples of Apocalypse. He's also Brian Lee in ECW too. So he was doing a lot of stuff. He wasn't just like a Joe Schmo. So, but they bring him in and they just put his hair in front of his face and say, "Oh, you're Undertaker now,"
and make him like as pale as they want to. Maybe I feel like it was like makeup-ish or whatever.
Yeah.
But they just put all his hair in front of him. You could clearly tell, like back then, like he kind of had like this like reddish, like black hair back then. Like because he was kind of like a ginger almost.
He is a ginger, I think.
He is naturally a ginger. Okay, see, because I remember him here, like he having like kind of like a reddish, kind of like blackish, like two-tone color hair. And so they do this to him, and they just like, okay, let's make it as wet as possible. So now you're like a wet dog, and now we're gonna just put all your hair in your face, and you're now dripping cold because your hair is all wet.
It's tough to be Undertaker, right?
Yes. Yeah.
But for a long time, people actually believed that was the great Undertaker they thought was the real Undertaker, because even on house shows for a while he was there wrestling as the Undertaker. So he was doing the choke slams, he was doing the leg drops, the tombstones. It wasn't like he was changing it up.
Right. The only thing he couldn't do was walk on the rope. Yeah,
well, that's a talent that only certain people can have, like the real Undertaker or trapeze artists.
Yeah.
So I think it's very interesting, because if you think about it, we didn't have YouTube, we didn't have Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. So really, you would take it at face value. Oh, that's Undertaker?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's no way to question it. How people, the schoolyard rumors at one time, there were two Ultimate Warriors.
Yes. Yep.
So I think that's the funniest thing about watching old wrestling is nowadays you're like, oh, didn't you hear about so-and-so signed with this company already? You didn't know before it even happens.
Right.
But yet then you're like, wait, that's Undertaker? Okay, that's it. I guess it is.
Yeah.
I guess it is. Yet when the Undertaker, the fake and the real one get face-to-face, so you think they're going to line up eye to eye. Well, nope, they don't, because Purple Taker is just a bit taller. So they get face-to-face. It's like, oh, wait, we're not really face-to-face, are we?
Right.
So all in all, though, I think the funniest part is the build-up, the storyline.
The build-up in the storyline. Like the build-up in the storyline is what made it better. The match, whatever.
Right. No, the match is nothing. It's not good. And it's funny when I put out suggestions for matches for us to talk about, everyone's like, Taker versus Taker, Taker versus Taker. And I'm like, I don't think you people understand the storyline is better. Like, it's funner and a little more entertaining than the match, because the match, it's just like, the concept, the idea of two Takers fighting each other is just a little wonky.
Right.
And then later on in like 2005, they had Kane versus Kane. Like, they've done this, they didn't learn their lesson.
This is like a gimmick of theirs. Like, they like to do these foolishness. Like you said, we had Ultimate Warrior, two Ultimate Warriors. Like, why do we need two Ultimate Warriors? Why do we need two Kanes? It's like, why do you guys think that this is a gimmick or a match that people want to see when we know clearly that there's not two of them?
Right. And that's the sad part. And this actually would be the first time we ever saw in this match. So, it's a simple match, whatever. Two slow dudes fighting, doing slow dude moves.
Right.
This is the first time, though, we ever see the reversal of the tombstone. Because later on, I know Triple H will do it, and Kane and Taker will do it, where someone gets someone in a tombstone. What happens? The person upside down, their feet are up here, and they lean back, and their feet actually go backwards and hit ground, and then pick you up and reverse you into a tombstone.
Right.
So if anything,
like they lean back and do like the whole
You do flip over. It's the birth of the reverse of the tombstone. We've never seen that.
Think about that.
Point.
Yeah.
It's been 4 years. 4 years of tombstones. This is the first time it's ever been reversed.
Wow.
Think about that. And it doesn't happen again until 1998 at WrestleMania 14. Yeah. So, like, it's pretty impressive. So,
right.
I think again, everything around it is fun. The idea of two Takers fighting is not the best concept in the world, but all in all, I was entertained, but we still had to hand out that prestigious disaster award. 5 disasters means it's the worst possible thing you've ever seen with your eyes, and a half a disaster saying, meh, it's really not that bad.
Right.
I might go with a half disaster. Meh.
I'm gonna go with a half disaster myself.
Yeah. It's not
It's not that bad.
No.
It's really not that bad. It's more so where it's tolerable, but it's not like, oh my God, this is just like the worst thing ever.
Right. It's not. But all in all, I thought it was fun to talk about it in general. Again, I haven't talked about this match in years. So
right. I remember I didn't see it live. I remember the match. I remember seeing it, but I don't remember watching it live, like when the whole show.
Right.
So that's what made it cool to go and rewatch it. But yeah, once I seen Paul Bearer, he opens up the thing. I'm like, there's a damn flashlight in there. Like, come on, like you guys are.
My flashlight will help you, Miss Chrissy Love. And if the power goes out, you can call me.
And then you have Jerry the King, like he's like, well, this is the real Undertaker. Like, I was like, that Jerry the King came that long ago. Like he came, or was it Bobby Heenan? No, Jerry the King.
It was Jerry.
Yeah, Jerry the King, and he's just like, well, that's the real Undertaker, when it's clearly not him. Like, talk about Ted DiBiase, the one named Dre. It's like this. The commentating is what makes it funny as well, too.
Of course. And honestly, we both give it a half disaster, but this would really open up a terrible storyline for Taker, because the rest of the year he has to fight the $1 Million Corporation, which is $1 Million Man stable. He's got to fight King Kong Bundy, IRS, Tatanka, Kama Mustafa. It's like an endless list of people you don't want to see wrestle. But we got it. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in, though, to this episode of Wrestling Disasters. We both gave it a half a disaster, which is really not that bad. But thanks for tuning in. I've been Steve Ball. She's been Miss Chrissy Love. And remember, folks, when you watch this episode, bring your barf back. But also, when you're puking into it, I want to hear your best Paul Bearer impression. Oh, yes. It's all over the dead man. Bye.
Toodles.